When I say golf, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a relaxing walk on a beautiful course, right? A gentle sport. I mean, compared to stuff like football or hockey, it's pretty low impact. But what if I told you that the gentle game of golf is hiding a secret? A surprising and honestly often painful reality about the toll it takes on the body. So let's peel back the curtain and look at the real science behind the swing. So let me ask you a question right off the bat. Is golf a contact sport? I can already hear you. Of course not, right? There's no tackling, no body checks. The only thing you're supposed to make contact with is the ball. But the answer, well, it's not quite that simple. Because in golf, the most significant, most frequent contact isn't with another player, it's with yourself. It's your body absorbing the force of that swing over and over and over again. And that repetitive internal contact, that's where our story really begins. Okay, before we can really get into why golfers get hurt, we need to be speaking the same language. So let's do a quick primer on the two most common types of injuries you hear about, strains and sprains. They sound almost the same, but believe me, they happen in totally different parts of your body. First up, we've got the strain. The easiest way to think about this is to picture your muscles and tendons as really strong, high-performance elastic bands. A strain is what happens when you stretch one of those bands too far or way too fast. The fancy term is tensile overload, which basically just means you asked your muscle to do something it wasn't quite ready for. And you can see exactly what that overload does right here. A strain isn't just a feeling, It's an actual physical tear in the muscle fibers. See it in this calf muscle? Those little ruptures? That's the injury. That's what's causing the pain. All right, now let's talk about its cousin, the sprain. If a strain is all about muscles, a sprain is all about ligaments. And what are ligaments? They're the super tough, fibrous ropes that basically lash our bones together at the joints. They're all about stability. You can't flex them like a muscle. Their only job is to hold everything together. So a sprain happens when a joint gets pushed way past its normal range of motion and it stretches or even tears those ligament ropes. You can see it happening right here in this ankle. And that's the key difference, right there. Strain equals muscle injury, sprain equals ligament injury. Got it? Good. Okay, so now we know what we're talking about. Let's get back to the golf course. What's the real reason so many players are in pain? Most people think it's that one single awful swing, that one moment where you hear a pop and everything just goes wrong. That's the classic story, isn't it? A big, traumatic injury. You swing way too hard, you slip in a bunker, maybe you even get bonked by a stray ball. You'd think that's where the biggest danger lies. But, and this is a huge but, when researchers actually started digging into the data, they found something completely different. The real danger in golf isn't the one catastrophic mistake. It's the thousands and thousands of seemingly perfect swings you make, week after week. And would you look at this data, it's not even a competition. The overwhelming majority of golf injuries don't come from one-off accidents. They come from overuse. It's the slow, steady, relentless accumulation of stress from all those swings that eventually causes the body to break down. So, if overuse is the enemy, where does it like to attack? I mean, the golf swing is a full-body movement, but that stress is definitely not spread out evenly. So let's zoom in and look at the body's biggest hotspots for golf injuries. And this chart lays it all out for us. For amateur golfers, the number one problem area by a pretty wide margin is the lumbar spine. That's your low back. Following right behind that are the elbows, then the wrist and hand, with the shoulder getting an honorable mention. These are the four main battlegrounds. Let's really focus on that number one spot for a second, the low back. Think about the modern golf swing. It generates an incredible amount of rotational force and speed. All of that high-velocity twisting puts immense pressure on the vertebrae and discs in your lumbar spine. And when you do that thousands of times, well, you get inflammation, disc problems, and chronic pain. Now, here's where it gets really specific and kind of weird. The injuries aren't even symmetrical. Take your elbows, for example. The lead elbow, so the left elbow for a righty, is actually more likely to get tense elbow. Meanwhile, it's the trail elbow that's more likely to get golfer's elbow. Isn't that wild? The very same swing is stressing each arm in a totally unique way. And it gets even more dialed in when we look at the wrists. A study of pros on the European Tour found that a whopping 2/3 of all their wrist injuries happened in the lead wrist. That's the one that guides the club, controls the face, and delivers the power. This tells us the lead side of the body isn't just taking some of the stress, it's taking the lion's share. And we can get even more granular than that. If we look at just one common type of wrist problem, on the ulnar side, that's the pinky finger side, a staggering 87% of those cases were in the lead wrist. This is not a coincidence. It's a direct result of the physics of the golf swing. Okay, so we know it's overuse, and we know exactly where it hurts the most. The next obvious question is, how much is too much? And this leads us to what you might call the practice paradox, where the very thing you're doing to get better is actually the thing that's taking you out of the game. Well, the research gives us some pretty clear answers. There are definite tipping points. Injury rates jump up significantly once golfers start playing 4 or more rounds a week. And they see another big spike when they're hitting more than 200 balls in a single session at the driving range. Volume absolutely matters, and there is a point where you start getting some dangerous diminishing returns. So what's the big takeaway here? Should you just sell your clubs and take up chess? No, absolutely not. The point of all this isn't to scare you away from a game you love, it's to empower you. The goal isn't to stop playing, it's to start thinking, to shift from just mindlessly hitting balls to practicing in a mindful, strategic way. So I'll just leave you with this one question to chew on. Now that you know all this, now that you know overuse is the real enemy, not some single catastrophic event, and you know exactly where your body is most vulnerable, how are you going to approach your next round, your next range session, your very next swing? Something to think about.